Boa tarde, bom dia, boa noite. Lembra que a gente fez um vídeo com o Peter Thum em que a gente falou sobre o trabalho dele de pegar armas apreendidas em zonas de conflito como a África, destruir essas armas e transformar isso em jóias, e transformar isso em relógio, transformar em canetas, em bijuterias. E o que ele faz? Reverte parte dos lucros disso para programas e projetos sociais na África. Talvez você não saiba, mas isso tem um nome muito interessante, chama Setor 2,5. Você tem o terceiro setor, que é o setor das ONGs. Você tem, agora eu vou me arriscar a falar uma coisa que eu também não tenho certeza, mas o primeiro setor da economia normal, onde o empresário só visa o lucro. E atenção, galera, sem demonizar os empresários, porque é muito difícil ter empresa e empreender negócios na vida, e no Brasil ainda, mais difícil ainda. Mas você tem um setor novo que é o setor 2,5, que é um setor que reverte parte dos lucros e parte dos seus esforços e energias para causas e organizações sociais. Aqui no Brasil a gente tem um outro exemplo bacana de setor 2,5, que é um amigo meu que estudou comigo, muito querido, que é o Rodrigo Pipons, e junto com os sócios fundou a revista Sorria. A revista Sorria é uma revista que está à venda em algumas drogarias e outros pontos de varejo. Você compra e parte da renda da revista vai para ONGs como o GRAAC. Salvo engano, já arrecadaram quase 20 milhões de reais para ONGs como o GRAAC. E ao mesmo tempo é um negócio. Então o setor 2,5 ele mexe com uma questão de lucro e propósito. Ele concilia as duas coisas. Vamos falar um pouquinho com o Peter sobre outros projetos do setor 2,5 e o que ele pensa sobre o assunto.
So these two businesses are set up as for-profit companies that take a percentage of their profits and invest that money into not-for-profit programs to, in the case in Africa, destroy guns, and in the United States, fund programs for education and training and safety for young children growing up in these communities that we have partnerships with. The decision to make these for-profit companies really centers around my experience as an entrepreneur, having started a business like this before that is now run by Starbucks, which is that even though I think it's much harder to generate funding by creating a business and having to create a brand and product than it is to simply go out and ask people for donations, the business creates new money, basically found money, to create solutions and alternative pathways to solving problems that don't exist if all you do is go out and try and raise charitable donations. In the United States, charitable donations represent about 2% of income. That number doesn't change very much. So if all you do is start another not-for-profit, you're basically competing for money that other not-for-profits are trying to raise and use for the things that they're doing. So whether it's funding a university or a cure for cancer or a cure for Parkinson's disease or a veteran of a war that we've been involved in, all of these not-for-profit organizations are competing for the same fixed amount of dollars. And so if you create a business that's taking money away from other jewelry companies or other watch companies or pen companies, that business is deriving value from a different source than asking somebody to write a check. I think that's one of the reasons why it's important. I also think that if you want to create products and grow a business, that's very difficult to do within the not-for-profit sector. Not-for-profits aren't very good at creating businesses and growing them, just because the kind of incentives and staffing that you need in order to compete with serious for-profit competitors are difficult. So the choice to set aside a certain amount of the value that's generated for the mission and use that to explain it to the public is something that the management team has to do, and that's part of the way that the company is set up. So the structure is Foundry 47 is a for-profit company that everything that we make is made out of guns, has a serial number of a gun, and a specific number of guns are destroyed by the purchase of its products. Liberty United is a for-profit company. Every product incorporates gunmetal from police departments, has the serial number of a gun on it, and 20 to 25% of the profit of those products goes into fund programs for kids. We also set up a not-for-profit program called Foundry 47 Foundation. Money from these two companies goes into that foundation, although we also make direct investments in other not-for-profit organizations from the two individual companies as well. Absolutely. I mean, I think that there's a specific group of people in every market who would rather buy a product that does good for the community they live in, whether you're talking about a country or the world or just in Rio. If there are products that you can create where a portion of the value is used to solve a problem, and that is the reason why you buy that product, then it makes sense to me that you could buy that product instead of buying another product that may or may not be slightly better. In bottled water, it was very easy because ultimately the difference between Ethos water and Evian is different color labels and different colored plastic bottles, but really there's not any real difference, it's just water. And so I think that increasingly over the last 30 years, these kinds of businesses have been developed and people have launched them, whether it's Product Red, which was created by Bono and his friends, or Ethos Water, or feed bags here in the United States, or utilities companies that instead of taking all the money that they earn as profits, plowing that back into environmental programs. All of these businesses are able to compete with pure for-profit companies and collaborate with pure for-profit companies because they give meaning to the people who are buying the products instead of just some standard commoditized thing that has no meaning at all other than what some marketer has told you. I think that's a complicated question. I may not be equipped to answer that. I'm not an expert in foreign relations, certainly not an expert in European foreign relations and policy in Africa. I will say that I think that, and this has been talked about quite a bit, a lot of people have written about this, and certainly stories appear like this relatively often in the media, that foreign aid is not successful as a policy alone in trying to address problems. Development dollars or development investment and aid that is given to countries do not solve those countries' problems. They help certain segments of those countries' populations. Certainly aid that's provided in emergencies is very helpful in saving people's lives sometimes. But I think that the aid that's provided by the United States and Europe, or has been provided over the period since the Second World War, has not solved the problems that it was originally intended to try to solve. Extractive industries collaborate with local governments, extract what they want, and then significant amounts of value go to those governments instead of to the people. And so I think probably the most inspiring thing that's happening in many developing countries is that these countries that have not built the infrastructure for telephone services and internet the way that we have will ultimately leapfrog many of the technological investments that we've made and go directly to internet and smartphones and all of the services that are available through those things without having to spend all the money that we've spent to build those things in our countries. And that puts the power of self-determination in the hands of the individual. And so I think many of the ideas that we here as Americans think about freedom and the ability to do things on your own and make your own way in the world, have opportunities and to build well, ultimately boil down to what are you made of and what will you do with it. The African continent specifically, with nearly 1 billion people, has the greatest opportunity in its hand now in the form of a phone. I think my family background, both of my grandfathers were involved in their communities, involved in their churches. My dad was a doctor, a surgeon, and did a lot of free care for people. My mom was a school teacher, and both of them were involved in the community where I grew up and in community leadership. And when I was very young, when I was 14, my father died of cancer. And so I think that at a very young age, I had the experience of loss, seeing what it was like to have to go through big challenges in life. And so I think that helped me to understand other people's pain and suffering in a way that was very different at a very early age in my life. And so when I was confronted with situations where there was an opportunity to do something, I think I had all the ingredients that put me in a situation where I was the right person to react that way.
Galera, muito obrigado. Semana que vem tem mais. Eu acabei inclusive de rodar um longa em Nova York chamado AB. Quem quiser saber mais sobre o AB, segue a nossa página no Facebook, segue o Instagram. Tem bastante coisa legal lá, um projeto que daqui a pouco a gente vai falar mais sobre ele no canal. Se você curtiu esse episódio, se inscreva no canal no YouTube, acompanhe nosso blog na Folha, dê like, compartilhe, comenta e é nóis. Muito obrigado!